Hello out there. My name is Laulu Akode, and you are on to Inside Sources. Happy New Year, everyone. Welcome back to Inside Sources. Today, we're going to be having a series of conversations with young people as we open this new year, 2025. We want to hear the voices of young people. I'm going to have about 3 of them, or 3 sets. And then at the end, I'm going to continue the conversation on the future of Nigeria with a notable Nigerian historian who's going to be talking to us about the mutuality between the Nigerian people and the Nigerian police. But the opening segment today, I have one of the young people who will be discussing with me on the voices of young people in this time, especially with the president's plan to have the national conference. I have with me Mr. Ajibola Khalil, who is a technopreneur and also a budding public affairs analyst. He's also a budding software engineering student.
Nice.
Khalil, welcome to Inside Sources.
It's nice to be here.
And Happy New Year.
Same to you, sir.
So if I ask you, what's your take about the future of the country? What will you say?
Take on the future of the country. To be honest, if you ask around 90% of Nigerians, they will blatantly tell you the future of Nigeria is bleak. But on a personal note, I'm a bit more positive if the government can put some things in place. Our future might be a bit more positive to the extent that we will then reach, positive growth development. And what are some of these things they need to put in place? Like I'll mention 3 major things. First, food security, which they need. It has to be in collaboration, with technology. The major problem we face today is food inflation, and people even say using food inflation is being formal. Hunger.
Yeah,
that's what people say.
Yeah.
So, so to solve this, they need to be really, huge mechanized, farm. There are a lot of problems actually around it, but we need bumper. What we all know we need bumper harvest. How can we solve bumper harvest? We need mechanized farming. We need more tech. We need more technology.
The president said that 2,000 tractors are coming.
I heard that in his media chats with some selected journalists. But truth is, 2,000 tractors is not scratching the surface of what we need. We have around 774 local governments. We need at least 20. The government is providing at least 20 to 30 tractors per local government. If we are to really touch, because in food production especially, we need to graduate from being self-sufficient to being net exporters. Because if you look at all the countries with big economies all over the world, like countries like China, Pakistan, India, America, Brazil, all of them are net food exporters. So they export food all over the world. In some selected crops, you see India, rice, America, soya bean. So we need to first be self-sufficient, have cheap food in Nigeria, and then start, exporting all over the world, because that's actually our real potential, and not just. And of course, so first we need tech. We need a lot of tech in this. So second is education and healthcare. There are already some steps they are doing now to digitalize the healthcare management system, especially. Of course, more steps needs to be done because these days a lot of necessary adequate medications are above the pockets of the masses. Right. A lot of, especially since the devaluation, a lot of Nigerians can't afford medication. So the health minister, of course, when you hear him talk, he is a square. How do you say? The square peg,
a square hole.
In a square hole. But of course, more effort is also for education. For education, especially youth. What does youth majorly need? We need to learn fourth industrial revolution skills. We need tech skills. From secondary school. Government should start introducing coding. AI, so a lot of tech skills. You can see in countries like Kenya.
You think it should be from secondary school?
It could even be from the ending of primary school, maybe primary 4, 5, but secondary school is fine. Okay. We need, so
to be doing coding.
Yeah. So coding, robotics, a lot of these skills, they need to find a way to start introducing some of them. Look at a country like Kenya, they've started introducing some of them into their national curriculum. So of course, national education curriculum. Yeah, national education curriculum. So I think they were adding history to the national recently, to the national education, but we also need more tech in terms of adding that, because the truth is, there's a very famous quote that youths are the futures of tomorrow.
Right.
But the truth is, the youth are today. We are more than 60% of the population.
True.
If we are the one that will make or break the country, and educating us is the least that the Nigerian government can do, or educating Nigerians, because if not, the repercussions might be, an hungry man is what? An angry man. So it really, and third point majorly is about using technology to secure the country. So in securing the country, I'm talking, borders, using drones to secure borders. I'm talking like actual protection of national infrastructure, because we can't grow if our present, everybody agrees that our national infrastructure is not where it's supposed to be.
Right.
But if that same national infrastructure is getting, destroyed and getting, damaged by miscreants, how would we move forward? So you see, for last year, we had around 15 grid collapses, around, I think 6 or 8 of them.
Yeah, the national power grid.
Yeah, were damaged by, we call them saboteurs or whatever, miscreants. So the government needs to bring in, of course, they need to deploy normal human resources to protect our national assets, but we need more tech in order to help us.
What do you think the tech? How do you think the tech would have prevented the sabotage?
It's the basic way.
Right.
First, we need to know that government has a lot of powers it may or might not be using.
Yeah.
Like, just giving a normal example, you see in the US, there's something we say in the cybersecurity landscape that, the US government, hears all and sees all. So for the Nigerian government, they need to find ways, and there already are, which I may not want to go into, but there are already ways governments can track, especially national infrastructure, especially if we're talking power.
Right.
Power should be a bit more control. It should be even be at the highest, level of priority.
Yeah.
Because, it's embarrassing that in 2024, more than, 60 years after independence, we are still talking about, power assets, being destroyed. Of course, maybe there are still issues of, the power being totally available, but we shouldn't be talking about, grid collapses because of people destroying it. We should really be more than that. So using security, so with tech to help improve the security landscape of the country. So if these three things could really be looked into, maybe we might start seeing some positive growth, positive future. And one thing the leaders of our country need to know is, in our population, we are growing around 6 to 8% every year. Nigeria as an economy needs to be growing at least 8 to 10% to match our population, not even to increase the GDP per capita, but to match up the population. So the 3% that we are growing today is really mediocre. It's really mediocre, to be honest. And with the inflation nowadays, so yeah.
Interesting. Thank you so much, Khalid. Very insightful comments and observations there. So the president says that, and I think it was as a response to the End Bad Governance protest in August. The president, when he made his speech then and even now in his New Year message, he's talking about the national conference for young people, and he says it's going to happen in the first quarter of this new year, 2025. What do you think should happen at that conference? And are you excited about it?
Okay, on a personal note, I maybe I'm not fully excited, but what I would say is we need to take lessons from previous national confabs that the federal government have conducted. Like if you remember around 2010, the previous around Goodluck Jonathan's regime, there was a national confab on constitution. Yeah.
Around
2013. Was there any really? Did they implement most of the things that was there? Is a dilly-dally. So first, if there are some resolutions made, we need to be able to track the implementations of them. That's first. So that's why I am saying that you might not really be excited, because in a lot of times in Nigeria, we have a lot of conference, and the implementation sometimes is always left wanting. So major thing that the president needs to know is the youths. And when we talk about youth, we talk about the Gen Zs, those in the Gen Zs.
Right.
There needs to be rebuilding the digital infrastructure. You know, I was reading some data that Nigeria has around 123 million of its people are not connected to internet. You know, of course, I know there are some efforts the Honorable Minister of ICT is doing, but we need more. To be honest, we need more. Like, you know, especially recently, there's been a lot of network collapses that a lot of Nigerians are complaining about. So we need improvement of the quality of network, and we also need more, like, you know, we need to lay more fiber optic cables. We need to improve, you know, we need to move like into 5G, because, you know, that's where we are headed. And of course, for improving the digital infrastructure, what the president needs to know is, of course, some of the effort they are doing in the 3MTT programs, teaching youth skills, is commendable. But of course, you know, we need to scale it up more. I think recently they were saying they will scale it around, I can't remember the number, but it's some hundreds of thousands.
We need to scale it to billions.
Yeah, we need to scale it up to the million. And that is why, in a way, if they can find a way to add it to the national education curriculum, as I was saying earlier, it could be great. Secondly, you know, we need more digital, we need some political reforms, so more digital, you know, governance reforms in terms of accountability. Though recently I found out that there was some, you know, there's a central coordination unit of the government that has, you know, a citizen tracker in which you can track the milestones and accomplishments of the government. Yeah, I checked it out, but, you know, it hasn't been updated recently.
Wow.
So, you know,
so they need to match up all those.
Yeah, it's a good step. It's a good step in the right direction, because previous government haven't been doing that.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jibola Khalil. Thank you for your contributions, and thank you for coming to Inside Sources.
You're welcome, sir.
All right.
Nice having you.
Thank you so much. And we're going to have, at least 2 more conversations around the ideas of the youth and their voices. And Inside Sources will be right back. Welcome back to Inside Sources as we continue the conversation on the future of Nigeria, especially looking at young voices today. I'd like to welcome my next guest, that is Ms. Darasimi Fadaunsi, an A-level student who has a keen interest in public health. Darasimi, you're welcome to Inside Sources.
Thank you so much for having me, sir.
Excellent. So we talk about the future of Nigeria here, and the president has also said that there's going to be a national confab. What do you think? You know, what's your take?
Well, firstly, I think that we can't start thinking about the future of Nigeria without solving the problems that we're facing today. I think some of the major things that I feel like need to be tackled before we start thinking bigger and looking towards the future are things like security, energy, healthcare, and education. I think insecurity is something that has found its way to negatively affect so many industries in our country, from things like farmers not being afraid to go to work in order to farm. It affects our agricultural sector and maybe even our exports, to things like people not being able to send their children to school because of the fear that anything can happen to them. So I do think, and also I think it also affects the implementation of certain new infrastructure in the country, because you don't know what will happen to it if you put something new, for example, you don't know what will happen to it tomorrow. Also, I think that if we're able to solve our energy problem in terms of constant electricity, I think it could support so many other projects for the future. It could support the increasing digitalization that we're seeing happening globally. It could also support the agricultural industry in terms of new manufacturing equipment and such. I think it could also help in terms of increasing industrialization and manufacturing in Nigeria as well, which I think will be very important in taking us to the next level. In regards to the youth conference that the president has announced, I do think that it's a good step, or it shows good faith to people of a younger generation like myself. It shows good faith to young people in terms of feeling like we want to hear from you, we want your input, because at the end of the day, Nigeria has a very youthful population, and define sustainability even as using resources today in a way that doesn't jeopardize our future. And so if resources today are being used, I think it's important that we have a say in how to maintain them and even maybe improve them for our future. I also think that the conference is also a good step in solving a problem I think that we have in Nigeria, where there's a disconnect between media or the news or knowledge about sort of the social, political environment in Nigeria and younger people, the youth. For example, take me for example, things like the fuel subsidy or the new tax reform. In trying to understand what's going on, someone that's interested in, I guess, our country and the news, trying to understand what's going on, you hear things about a centralized tax body or unified system, and you don't know what it means. Nobody is really taking the time to yes, exactly, to break it down. Exactly. And I think that things like social media could create a niche or a good way to sort of bring the news to the masses, bring the news to younger people, because at the end of the day, you have to speak to people in a language they understand. And I know that social media journalism usually gets a bad rep in terms of it's not reliable. Yeah. Don't believe everything you read on the internet. People can say anything. It's more opinions than facts. But I do think that there is space for someone to sort of create that niche in making the news more digestible and understandable for people, because I feel like once you understand what's going on, that's halfway to the problem. If people actually understand maybe the reasons why certain policies are being made, or even just why certain things happen, the issues that are going on, people can actually start thinking about what can I do? It can, for example, take me for example in me wanting to study public health and everything like that.
Okay, good. So, which is where I wanted to take you to next. I see that you have, looking at your profile, you have quite a bit of interest in public health. Can you talk to us about that briefly?
Yes, I do. So, for university, I'm applying to study public health. I think something that happened to me, at least a personal story I can share, is of my aunt. My aunt was a congresswoman and a former minister in Nigeria, and her cancer. I
like that you call it congressman. That's what I call my friends too, and they say that, well, we are not in America, we're House of Reps, but I call my friends, they are congressmen too.
And so her cancer had come back, unfortunately, and it was more aggressive this time. It had metastasized to her brain. And so in trying to get her treatment at National Hospital, we found out that there was national strike of healthcare workers at the time. And so she was privileged enough that they gave her the option that if she was willing to pay enough, then they were willing to bring some of the workers back into the hospital and get her treatments done. Now I can compare her situation to Mr. Eshaku, a security guard at home. Mr. Eshaku has 4 wives, and it's like every time his salary increases, there's a new one. If you ask Mr. Eshaku to count his children, he'll tell you that his religion does not permit him to. Unfortunately, he had 2 children who passed away within the same month. And this is all due to preventable causes. And so I think that there's that inequality in terms of there's not access to healthcare delivery systems. People can't, even systems that are there in place, like for example, the radiology equipment, there wasn't access to the average person to afford. There's no access for the average person to afford it. And sometimes even when it's there, there's other things coming into play about why people aren't able to be able to access these things. For example, in my aunt's situation, it had to do with the larger issue of salaries for healthcare workers, and maybe even funding in the healthcare industry in Nigeria.
For the strike at that time.
Exactly. So me personally, that's why I'm quite interested in the field.
Your ideas excite me also, and I'm sure it excites quite a bit of Nigerians. Thank you so much for those views and the contribution. And thank you for coming to Inside Sources.
Thank you so much for having me, sir.
And
it's really
we look forward to your
here.
public health career in
Thank
the future.
you, sir.
Thank you so much. And that's it. We will continue this conversation on the future of Nigeria with young people. Inside Sources will be right back. Welcome back to the second segment of this conversation with young people. Like we said earlier, Mr. President says that there's going to be a national conference for young people in the first quarter of this year. And so Inside Sources is opening its 2025 with a conversation with young people. This is the second segment, and I have with me here in the studio Emanuela Aripo, who is actually a fellow of the Legislative Mentorship Institute and the lead for Policy Forward. Emanuela, welcome to Inside Sources.
Thank you very much.
All right. Now, joining us virtually is Mr. Ibrahim Aminu Guzo, who is a student from the Rochester Institute of Technology and is already a lead researcher in that school. Ibrahim, you are welcome to Inside Sources.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
All right. So let's start from the studio. So we like to talk about the future of the country. And this year we want to open with what young people have to say. We just did a category, and this is the second category of young people. So Emanuela, what do you think? What's your take about the future of Nigeria?
Okay, I'll first of all have to correct you. You said fellow of the Legislative Mentorship is actually the fellow of the Legislative Mentorship Initiative,
Okay.
Not the Institute.
Right.
Okay, for Nigeria, basically, I don't think that young people's aspirations or expectations for 2025 are any different than what the average Nigerian wants.
Okay.
Why it's more intense for us is that, we are at the prime of our life. It's a different thing when you live in a country and everything works for you. That's why most people want to run to America. They want to run to Europe. In Nigeria, you wake up every day and it feels like the country is trying to kill you. So young people in 2025 do not want that for their reality. They want policies that actually work for them. They want policies that actually are not just talking, but these policies are actually implemented. It's not enough that you say, oh, we want people to come and talk to us about this. It's not enough that we say, oh, young people should come and, express themselves. How much of our talking gets to work? How much of these policies get to work for us? Nigerians or young people in Nigeria, usually just want to be secure. Security of life, they want security in employment. I can't graduate from the University of Lagos, have a 4 points, and then come out of school and I'm looking for a job. And then maybe because of strikes and all of that, I have to now, have this whole issue of fighting with the private sector or the public sector because, the employment age is 26 and I'm already 28. These are the issues that we are trying to address or that we want to be addressed. In 2025, let the government do more than just speak to us.
Okay.
It's not enough that you speak to us. Yes, it's enough that it's okay that you hear us and you say, oh, we hear you, we see you, we create a conference for you to come and talk to us. But then let this talk go beyond just talking. Let us see the implementation of what you are saying. Let 2025 be the year where youth can say, okay, I drive out of my house as a young person, having created my own opportunity, having created my own source of income, having created my own sort of, entrepreneurship. And I come out of my house and I'm not scared that a frustrated police officer is going to kill me. I'm not scared that, somebody who is in the civil service is going to frustrate my appointments. I'm not scared that anything that working in Nigeria is going to work against me. There's a popular saying in Nigeria, oh, Nigeria happened to him. Nigeria happened to her. That's a major prayer the Nigerian used to not want to pray in 2025. Let Nigeria not happen to me, but let Nigeria thrive for me. Let me thrive in my country. I did a research for my final year, and it was on brain drain.
Right.
The Japa syndrome. I know people who did not want to Japa, but it felt like there was nothing happening here. This is a new administration. And we've heard, give them a chance. Let them work. Let them do something. And then they've said, the 10th Assembly has said, oh, we're opening up the assembly to the people. This is the People's Assembly. The president has said, oh, this is the people's government. We want to see that work for young people. there should be security for employment. There should be security of life. And there should be, a thriving environment for us to be able to, if there is not enough jobs, because of course we're 200 and something million people, and the youth make up about 60% of that demography. We cannot say that, okay, the government is going to provide all of our jobs, but then let policies be in place, let the environment be in place where we can create our own jobs,
right?
Pay our own taxes and know that these taxes work for us.
Excellent.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for those opening comments, Emanuela. And we're going to come back to further dimensioning so that we can talk of specifics that you may have in mind. But now let's take it to Ibrahim Aminu Guza, who is joining us actually virtually from Kano. But Ibrahim is a student, I think a junior in Rochester Institute of Technology in New York, one of the leading technology institutes in the US. So Ibrahim, what's your take about the future of Nigeria? When you think about the future of Nigeria, what comes to your mind?
I'd say it's hopefully promising, but I definitely agree with a lot of the points Emanuela stated. I'd say that what should drive a lot of the youths is our ambition and our hopes to be able to make something of ourselves on our own, which I feel like can be very difficult with the state the country is currently in. It's difficult to be able to, for example, if you can't afford it, go to university, know that your own merit has pushed you ahead, and know that you've made something of yourself with the things that you've created on your own and stepped up those steps on your own. But currently with the state of the country, I feel like that's something that's very difficult to achieve, and it's kind of more of who you know. It's not, I got first class in university, I'll be able to go and start doing the work that I want, but it's more of, oh, I'm related to this governor, so I'll be able to do that work. And I feel like that dynamic in Nigeria needs to change if we really want to move forward and see the youths have their ambition expressed, because you wouldn't really want to be ambitious. You wouldn't want to go through all of the stress of school, learning, education, everything, when you know that at the end it's possible that there's nothing for you. So I feel like if we want to see a promising Nigeria for the youth, which I hopefully see in the future, especially with the new changes that we're seeing and everything, I want to be able to see a country where you know that your own merits can push you ahead, and where that you can make something of yourself without having to know someone, without having to leech upon someone else, but knowing that inherently you just have the ability to move forward on your own. And I feel like that's what we need to focus on in the country to help youths.
Excellent point also. I mean, okay, so I like the way both of you have started. So now we're going to try and see how we can further deepen the issue. So I'll bring it back to Emanuela right here in the studio. So you talked about, Nigeria happening to you, which has basically become a very negative perception. But for a lot of people, this is just reality. So I would like to ask you, as a young person, Emanuela, what will be the priority? What should be the priority of government and society in trying to change that perception? What has to happen? And I want you to be a little bit more specific. I mean, you are already a policy advisor, analyst already. What in your view ought to happen? And I'm very deliberate by saying that both governments and society, because in my view, it will have to take a whole society approach.
Okay, so thank you very much. First off, I think that for government, the policies are already in place. It's implementation. Like I said earlier, youths need security, not just for life, but also in employment. A lot of young people create their own employment, not because they want to. Not everybody can be an entrepreneur. Not everybody can be a business person. Most people are created or destined to work. Now, where do they work at? While the government cannot provide all of that, there should be some, collaboration between the private and the government sector and the public sector, where people are able to get, good jobs, so they don't have to, go into crime or any sort of vices. But as much as I say this, I also know that young people as well have a lot of roles or a lot to do in order to be able to, participate in the country or participate in the government. For instance, young people as it is, have taken a backbench. It's now more of complaints. We complain, yes. Most people even say, oh, young people talk a lot. We talk about all the things that want to happen, but we don't actually do anything. So for young people, or for the society at large, we need to stop seeing Nigeria as the problem that is happening to us. There's a popular saying, oh, don't look at what the country can do for you, look at what you can do for the country. Now, if the country begins to work in terms of policies, if the policies begin to be implemented, it's not an automatic thing that people will begin to, work in line with the policies. There has to be a reorientation. People have to begin to see Nigeria as the country they want, the country they are loyal to. I'm going to cite a bit of an example when I use the Americas or the United States of America. Why people call it the greatest country on earth? It's not because the country is anything different from the other countries in Europe or in North America. The only difference is the perception of what the people have. Americans will die for America. How many Nigerians will die for Nigeria? Even the people who go into the service don't go into the service these days with a commitment to, try to die for the country.
When you say service, you mean
the armed forces? Okay. Yes. Most people go in there because it's an alternative. It's a job. Do you go? They go? So that's why you see that there's a bit of a lackadaisical attitude towards the way towards the way the military is right now compared to what it used to obtain in the 90s. If Nigerians want Nigeria to work for us, if young people want Nigeria to work for us, we have to stop seeing Nigeria as the problem. We have to start seeing Nigeria as our home. If you see your home as, if you come back from work and your house isn't very clean, you don't go outside and start screaming at the house and say, why are you not clean? You start to clean the house. So if you want Nigeria to work for you as a young person, yes, it is hard. In fact, I'm saying this and I know it is very, very hard to see a country that already failed you a lot of times and then say, okay, I want to begin to believe in this country again. But then remember that north, west, south, home is best. Anywhere you go to, there is going to be that discrimination, even in Africa. Anywhere you go to, you still have to come back home. And if home isn't good enough, nothing is going to work for you. You can stay there, you can die there, but someday somebody that is linked to you will come back home. And what happens when home is still the same way you left it? So it takes all of us to make Nigeria great again.
Wow, excellent point, Manuela. Thank you so much. So Ibrahim, I'm aware, reading your profile that even though you are still an undergraduate in Rochester Institute of Technology, you're already doing some work with some of the researchers and around the development of electric batteries and stuff like that. Now, do you want to talk to us a little bit about that and connect it with how it is that young people can advance, with the skills that they are acquiring, both from locally and outside the country, how they can advance, the important things in Nigeria, how they can advance national development. Ibrahim.
Yeah, absolutely. So some of my research right now is into prosthetics and piezoelectric sensors and then battery development, which a lot of engineering goes into it. But that's interesting to me, but to a lot it wouldn't be, which I feel like is a very important thing. One thing I'd say America has that other countries haven't mastered yet is the opportunity to do many different things in many different fields. So no matter what your interests are, you're able to enter that field and excel in that, which is incredibly important, that diversity and that opportunity. Because if you have, there's a saying, I believe it was Albert Einstein who said, if you try and teach a fish to climb a tree, it won't be able to. But at the same time, if you put that fish in the water, it's going to swim faster than anything else. So I feel like that's something that's very important, that specialization, that ability to do something that interests you. Because in the country, if we have people doing what interests them and what they enjoy, they're going to go much further into it and they're going to be a lot better at it. And we're going to have the country parallelly going a lot faster in improvement and productivity, as opposed to a lot of people doing what they don't find interest to, going into fields that they aren't interested in. So I feel like if in Nigeria we have a system in which people had that opportunity to go into the different fields they like more and do the different researches, do the different jobs they enjoy more, we're going to see a lot more productive country. We're going to see happier youths, and we're going to see the country advance further all together as one nation.
Okay, so Ibrahim, so some of the research, the flagship research of which you're already involved with professors in RIT already, how do you think you can bring the knowledge that is being developed to bear on Nigeria's development? Because you're a Nigerian out there.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. So my main research right now is going into improving prosthetics, which is just the artificial limbs that people use. It's advancing them in terms of the touch so that they have touch feedback and so that they're able to do a lot more, which would be incredibly crucial to Nigeria, as we have a lot of amputees in the country and there are a lot of people with many different disabilities. So one of the main projects I'm working on right now is trying to not only improve these prosthetics, but also make producing them cheaper, which if they proceed to the point that it's cheap enough for any person on the street to be able to get those prosthetics, we're going to have a lot less of these amputees and a lot less of the disabled people we have in the country now being able to do work, now being able to provide for their families and be able to not only have their own inherent happiness, but also be able to increase the productivity of the nation as a whole, which I feel like we'll see a large difference in the country if those prosthetics are able to be made affordable for everyone and not just the people with money and the people in foreign countries.
Okay, excellent. But let me make it back to Emmanuel as we try to wrap up. So Emmanuel, you are a policy advocate already. This idea of a national conference, and we had referred to it earlier, but I want us to dig a little bit into it as we wrap it up. What do you think should happen in that national conference? The president in his New Year message said that that's going to happen in the first quarter of the year. What do you think should happen at that conference? What do you even think that the idea is a good idea? Because it turns out that it seems that is the president's response to the End Bad Governance protest of August last year, if you recollect. Yeah.
Okay. So I would say that, like I always say, dialogue is good. Conversations are okay. I was part of the youth summit that the 10th House of Assembly had, and yes, it was a good conversation. But not to be a bearer of, or a dampener, but the thing is, oftentimes when young people go to conversations like this, they are corrupt. We've learned from the best. So, we go to these places and we're expecting the packages after. We're not there to speak about what we want because we don't want to offend these people. Now, if young people, and this I say without any bias, if young people want Nigeria to work for us, right. If old people want Nigeria to work before they go and leave the country in our hands, if they don't want a repeat where they, get on their deathbed and they start to say, oh, I wish I had done this better, that particular conversation should not be business as usual. If we're going there to talk about what young people want, if we're going there to talk security, let us talk about security in the right sense.
Namely?
Let us talk about reforming the police, reforming every part of the armed forces, in the sense that we're not talking, we're changing their uniforms, we're changing the name of the units. Let's talk ending bad governance, not in the sense of collapsing MDAs or merging ministries. How do we make this work perfectly? How do we remove people who are not ready to make sure that the civil service is a functional service? How do we make sure that this service is not going to just be there? People just stay in office 14 years, 15 years, and they don't achieve anything. That conversation should be targeted at security, employment. How do we make sure that, okay, fine, we're 60% of the population. How do we employ 60 people, 60% of the population without, collapsing on ourselves? How do we make sure that this minimum wage that we've said is now 70,000 naira or 77,000 naira? How do we make sure that this minimum wage actually gets to us? Who pays? How do they pay? Is the private sector able to pay this money? If they cannot pay it, how much of this minimum wage can they pay? How reasonable is the amount they are offering? States say, there's an increase in the minimum wage, we cannot pay it. There's a new tax reform that has been all over the country and everybody's quarreling about, how do we address these issues? Because we're in Abuja. There are people in Lagos. These are the two cities that people focus more on. But if you go to Cross River, if you go to Akwa Ibom, if you go to Rivers, there are young people here who have a different reality from what we have here. We can come here and we can smile and gist and talk about all of these things and have, the conferences. And there are people who are going to be shipped into Abuja during that conference. Right. And they will be beholden to the people who bring them here. How do you bring people here and you don't hold them or you don't make them feel beholden to you? young people, this is me speaking not just as a guest on this show,
Right.
but I'm asking, if you are invited for the conference in 2025 and you are coming to speak to the president, do not go there to think about the 50,000 naira you're going to get at the end of the show, because it's going to be a show. What you desire is a country that works for you, a country where everything you desire works. Where if you put in 50,000 naira, you get back 55,000 naira with no added problems. Not that you get back 55,000 naira and then you have to pay, 70,000 naira backlogs. Come to the conference. Speak from your heart. Don't come there and antagonize people. Don't come there and be, the SUG president of your school. No. Come there and speak from your heart, and let it be that the things that you are addressing are employment, they are security, and they are a place for, entrepreneurship to thrive. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Emanuela Aripo, for your views. And thank you so much, Ibrahim Aminu Guzo, for your views and ideas too. We do believe and hope, actually even trust, that ultimately the future of this country will be secured. And I'm impressed by the forthrightness that both of you have demonstrated going forward. Thank you so much for coming to Inside Sources. Thank you,
Thank you. It was
Brian.
great.